morning. Welcome to the Somerset News Network. Interesting times on Brexit at the moment. I haven't done a video because nobody seems to know what's really going on. But there's some things that are being talked about on the internet at the moment. And I thought, well, I might like to share them with you. Now there's a guy called Jeff Taylor. Just look him up on YouTube. He does some brilliant videos on Brexit. He keeps up with the information. There's also Brexit Central, which is a brilliant website for information. As soon as the Boris deal is done, it'll be in civil service gobbledygook. So I would advise anybody to go onto the website of Brexit Central and they will explain the new deal, if it is a new deal, if it's not the May deal rehashed. But there's some disturbing things came out this morning on the BBC. Now, the BBC is the propaganda wing of the government. We all know that. It was suggested that goods going into Northern Ireland destined for Europe, we will collect the tariffs and send them to Europe. No way, no say. How can we be an independent country if we're still collecting tariffs for the EU? That has got to be a red line. That's got to be a no-no. That's what happens now. All the goods that come into Britain from outside of the EU is classed as coming into the European Union. We pay a tariff on that and VAT. Or the tariff may be a VAT on the goods coming in. It used to be that when I used to buy stuff from the States, there was a handling charge from the post office, which was £18, and there was a 5% VAT on it, which was the tariff for goods coming into the country. I now understand that that money, that tariff money, all goes to the EU. But the EU allow the government to keep 20% of it. So I am paying twice for collecting the money. I'm paying the post office for handling the goods and working it out, and I'm also paying the tariff, which is also paying them to handle the money. So I'm paying twice for the same job. I'm a businessman. I do a job, I charge somebody, I get paid for it. I don't then charge somebody else for it. This is a scam. It looks criminal to me. Why? To hide it from us. To hide how much we are actually paying the EU. They call it VAT, they call it a tariff. We pay our government gives it to the EU. The EU allows us to keep 20% of it. So goods coming in from China, coming here, will be taxed, tariffs, import duty, if you like to call it that. We keep 20% of the money. The tariff is worth 2.4 billion a year is what we give the EU from our import duties. How can we leave the EU so that we can keep our money? If there are tariffs charged on imports, it should be ours. How can we then charge the duty if the goods are going to the EU and give the EU the money? If the goods are going to the EU, when they cross the border and go into the EU should collect that money. Not us, them. It's a way of keeping us in the EU. Now, the other thing that's been said is that the Ben bill, the stop the no deal Brexit, and Boris will have to write a letter to extend Article 50 if he can't get a deal. Well, there are two schools of thought on this. Jeff Taylor suggests that we could use Article 51, which says that a member state can't be coerced into taking an action. Well, why would we use the Lisbon Treaty to get us out of the EU when we don't want anything to do with them? It's crazy. But we're still a member of the EU, and if that's going to get us out, I say use it. Now, the other school of thought is that EU law trumps UK law, because we are no longer a sovereign nation. We are a region of the European Union. Get that into your thick little skulls, you Remainers. Yes, we are no longer a sovereign nation. If we have to enact laws that are passed or come from the commissioners of the EU, and our government is obliged just to rubber stamp it and put it into UK law, then we are no longer a sovereign nation. There's no ifs or buts about it. We are no longer a sovereign nation. And the other thing they talk about is we haven't got a written constitution. How many times do I have to tell you? We have a constitution. It is written down in a number of acts of parliament. We have got the Magna Carta. Liberties of the subject, 1354, which is where we get due process of law from. We have the Bill of Rights, Crown and Parliament Recognition Act, and the Act of Settlement of 1700. The Act of Settlement in 1700 says that the laws of England are the birthright of the people. These are written from the common law that we have, which you can find in Blackstone's. I'm not the expert on Blackstone. There's 4 great big thick books that you can read in the law library, and I try to go through them over the years and understand them. But it's basic principles of common law, what you can do, what you can't do. I found out that they've been edited, and we think that the guy that edited them after the 1700s was a guy called Murray. I can't remember his... William Murray, I think his name was. And he was one of the instrumental people on taxing the Americas in the 1780s. And that's what led to the American Civil War. Well, I should say the 1770s, because the Civil War was 1775, the War of Independence for America. I shouldn't say the Civil War, that was 1860. The War of Independence with us at America. We taxed the Americans for housing our troops, corn, and cotton. That's why all our cotton mills went out of business in the late 1700s, because cotton became too expensive and we then couldn't compete. So let's get back to common law. Blackstone's is the common law, well worth reading. It's on a website called the Avalon Project, and that's run by the Yale University Law Department, and it's worth reading. That's the basic principles of our common law. We've got a Bill of Rights that was done after the Glorious Revolution, where William of Orange and Mary came up from Brixton in Devon, came up to Exeter, and then went to London. I suppose they would have walked along what is now the 303 and went into London. James II, who was a Catholic king, who would not let a Protestant hold office within the state and would not let the Protestants be armed, flew to Scotland because he was a Jacobite. They wanted to bring back the rule of the Catholic Church. We were Protestant, so we removed him. And there was a bloodless revolution. That's why it's called the Glorious Revolution. 1688, if anybody wants to look it up. That gave us the Bill of Rights. Now, the Bill of Rights may have been written by John Locke, or he may have had a hand in writing it. Now, John Locke has been written out of history. He's a philosopher, he was a doctor. He did the scientific principle that we use. You've got a theory, you work a test, you get the results, you have a conclusion. John Locke did that, and nobody ever talks about it. John Locke was a Protestant, and under James II he had to flee the country, and he went to Holland and became the tutor of Mary and William. And I don't know if they had any kids or not, but he would have been the tutor of the children as well. So he was a doctor, a tutor, and a philosopher. So it's worth looking up John Locke, if anybody's interested. But in the Bill of Rights, I might have somebody at the door. That's the postman, I expect, delivering the parcel. What we find is that the Bill of Rights has an oath in it that MPs take. MPs no longer take that oath. Question, and I don't know the right answer, are MPs legitimate if they don't take the oath out of the Bill of Rights? Someone should look into this. In there it says that no foreign kingdom, princedom shall have rule or power over this nation. That's why we're a sovereign nation. John Major never had the right to sign the Maastricht Treaty, and they never had the right, Gordon Brown never had the legal right under our Constitution to sign the Lisbon Treaty, which they both did. That little piece in the Bill of Rights says that no foreign power can rule over us. But because it's in the oath, so they don't have to say it, they brought in an Oaths Act. How can they bring in an Oaths Act when we've got a Bill of Rights? Because they wanted us to be in the EU, that's why. They wanted us to be a region of the EU and a part of the superstate of the European Union. Totally wrong, totally not part of our Constitution. Look it up, everybody. Don't take what I say as gospel. Look it up and find out for yourself. Right, Ian, rant over. Why should we collect taxes for the EU? If they want to collect taxes, it's got to be at their border, not ours. And we've got to get out. It's the only way that this country is going to survive. If we stay in the EU, we are going to be paying them 14 billion a year. And it's going to go up. It's not going to go down. Just think what we could do with that money if we had it in our own hands. NHS, healthcare, care for the elderly, you know. Food banks, there shouldn't be food banks if we got that sort of money to spread around. People would then have spare money because we wouldn't have to tax them as much. and they could go out and spend it. And if people had spare money and go out to spend it, people would have jobs. People would want to buy things. Right. Ian Sumrall, Somerset News Network, rant over, signing off, goodbye, and I'll let you know next time I have some thoughts.